Hi, I'm Cindy Edison, conscious channel and human aspect representative of Josef. Josef is a collective consciousness of teachers and the evolutionary vibration of Seth and Abraham, and also they represent for us the vibration of the new earth. We are teaching that perspective in order to assist the human individually and the human collective in our movement forward on our eternal soul's path. Join us as we delve into the new perspective and shift our consciousness to accommodate the vibration of the new earth. Let's listen. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the teachings of Josef. We all hope that you are focusing on your own alignment and making conscious choices from that space. It, after all, is the space of not only who you really are, but it is the pure vibration of love. And if you've been following us, you know that. Okay, so today I am introducing you to a process that Josef gave me a few months ago. It's the process that will shift your belief system from the base that is the old paradigm teachings, the foundation of the third dimension, to the foundation and base of the new earth vibration and the new aspect of you. We are, in essence, vibrationally walking from the third dimension to the fourth and then on to the fifth. The reason this is important is that our belief system is how we create our own reality. And up to this point, our physical vibration has been dominant in the third dimension. This is the dimension where contrast, or as we call it, the out of alignment choices, are available for our choosing. We've been walking through this dimension for eons of time. And along our journey here, we have been taught beliefs and understandings that are in agreement with the third dimension. That makes sense, right? This is where we've been. It's what we're exposed to. And it's been our experience. All the physical lifetimes that we have experienced in the third dimension, all the vibrational timelines within the third dimension are, of course, in vibrational agreement with the third dimension, or they wouldn't be here, right? Neither would we if we weren't in agreement with them, right? So now, as these new energies are coming into our awareness, and of course, it is our choice to include them, you must choose it. We are standing on the precipice of moving into the fourth dimension and ultimately the fifth, where the new earth exists in its non-physical form as a level of consciousness for us to experience. It's the next segment on the eternal path for the human aspect. So the question is, how do we get there? The answer is we shift our physical vibration to match the vibration of the new consciousness, namely the new earth. Okay. We choose to be a match to a different vibration that offers a different experience. And we choose the new vibrations by way of our thoughts, by what we focus on. Okay. So, as you know, you experience what you expect, what you focus upon, and the vibration from which you create. If you want a different tasting cake, Joseph's back in the kitchen again, you choose a different recipe. And our recipe is a vibrational one, right? So let's get into this. Okay, when Josef began talking to me about shifting my beliefs, I asked them, obviously, well, how do I do that? And that's when they shared this process. They said, this is very simple. Draw a line down the middle of a sheet of paper, make 2 columns. Label the left-hand column, my current beliefs, and the right-hand column, my soul's knowing. Begin by listing your current beliefs down the left-hand side. So I did that. I have to say that it wasn't easy. I actually thought, well, this shouldn't be too much of a big deal for me because at this point, I shouldn't have many leftover beliefs. Well, that was not true. Once I began listing them, they just continued to come. Okay. So when I got to number 10, I stopped and I stepped back and I started reading this list one by one. And as I read them, I began to feel sadness for me. And I remember feeling sorry for me. But then in one moment, I realized and actually said this out loud that this is not who I am anymore. And as soon as I said that, I could feel the shift. Okay. It was really cool. So I said to Joseph, okay, what's next? And they said, now begin listing our knowing side by side with the beliefs you just wrote down. The number one belief that I had, I wrote the number one belief for them. Actually, they helped me. We did it together. So together, we made this right-hand column list of the soul's perspective of the beliefs that I had written. When I was finished with number 10, Joseph began telling me what we had just created. And they said, the left-hand column is the foundation, the belief system you have created through your journey through the third dimension. It has manifested from all the experiences, the teachings, the understandings that you have picked up along the road, so to speak. This is the basis for the physical reality you have created for yourself, and it is in agreement with the third dimension. They went on to say that the right-hand column is a list of new beliefs, new understandings that are all conjured in the new earth vibration. They are based on the universal truths, and they are the foundation that will assist in your creating of your reality on the new earth. And they are the perspective and foundational vibration of the new aspect of you, the new physical aspect who will live on the new earth as a universal blended being focused on and creating from the space of alignment. Isn't that cool? It was very cool. So what we have here is the first step onto the bridge that will take us to the fifth dimension. And the bridge itself is the fourth dimension. You see, when you shift your dominant physical vibration, because we are compiled of not only the third dimensional vibration, where our physical vibration has been existing in all these eons of time, right? But we're also our soul's vibration. We are always our soul's vibration. So up to this point, the dominant vibration has been that of the third dimension. When you shift your dominant physical vibration to the vibration of who you really are, you are naturally then attracting from the space of alignment instead of the vibration of contrast. As you continue to focus on the vibration of love, the vibration of who you really are, as opposed to the vibration of the third dimension of contrast, you easily slide right into the fifth dimension of consciousness. It's really cool and very simple. The concept is very simple, but we have a lot of beliefs that most of which we're not even aware of until we do something like this, right? And this process can be done over a period of time. There's no time limit on the process. You know, when I first did it, I wrote a couple down and then left the list. A little while later came back, they pop in your head. Well, they did for me. So don't be afraid of this process. It can be really fun, and it is a path of discovery. The process was very eye-opening for me. And although it can be pretty daunting to discover where your focus is and has been, it will shift your weight to the new footing. And that footing is your soul's eternal path. We are on the precipice of the next segment of our human journey. So Joseph gave us some statements that reflect the soul's perspective in their first Allow Your Soul to Lead book. So if you're not in conscious communication with your soul yet, or your higher self or inner being, they will help you compile the right-hand column. If you'd like the list, you can email me at info@theteachingsofjoseph.com, or you can go to the website and you'll see a link there to the 7 steps of self-discovery and healing. They'll help you too. These steps and the statements are all based in universal truths. It is a shift in your perspective. Okay. So there's the process for you to use. Get a sheet of paper. I showed you what they look like. Very simple. And now a special treat. I'm going to include here a conversation I had with my friend Eliza, who has done this process. I gave it to her about a month ago, I guess, and she has been emailing me. So she agreed to do this so you guys can hear her experience. It's really a wonderful process that we have in front of us. So I'm going to bring that in right now. So I hope you enjoy this. Okay, here we go. So welcome in. So you want to give us a little bit of background for you. You've been on this spiritual journey for a while and you're doing so fabulously. So why don't you share that a little bit first, and then you can go right into the process and what it's done for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I began meditating in 1989, and I was in an ashram for 6 years in my 20s. And then that whilst I was living a spiritual life and connected to the ashram, I was also in graduate school. And then at the same time that I left the ashram, I entered New York advertising. I worked on Madison Avenue. And I've had a 20 plus year career working in advertising and as a marketing professional. And I continued my meditation practice probably all the way through 2004 as a daily practice. And then between 2004 and 2016, it started to sort of peter out until, as I described to you, Cindy, I kind of hit a place where I felt like almost spiritually bankrupt. Like I would go to these crystal sound baths, and I just didn't feel like I could connect the way that I used to.
Yes.
And so, that's a really hard thing, especially when you've been, you've been meditating for so long and it was so easy for you to connect. And then all of a sudden you feel like, wow, this is much harder. And I just don't feel it coming the way that I did. So I took a 2-year sabbatical, and I really sort of centered myself on just focusing on my own creativity and my own natural energy. And it was definitely a process of sort of getting back to a place where I felt like it was easy to connect. And it really came back for me when I, in earnest, started meditating again. And I did a course with Guy Stephen Needler called Traversing the Frequencies. And I did that course level 1, level 2, and level 3, which requires not only a daily meditation practice, but for you to write down your experiences that you're having during your meditations. And I think it was midway through level 2, I realized, oh my goodness, I can never stop meditating again. Like that, I realize now, like, it's not like you can just put money in the bank and then stop. Like it's so easy to drop frequency. So I kind of at that moment committed that for the rest of my incarnation, I would have a regular meditation practice. And so I've pretty much kept it up since. And then, all of that, ultimately led me to you, to, coming across you on the Kevin Moore show. And I got all 4 of your books. And I've kind of like, in fact, I was just reading book 3 today, which is about love and the soul's love, which is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
But I've kind of dipped across all 4. And then just one day I got inspired to reach out to you. I wasn't having any kind of crisis. I just felt like it would just be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And we connected. And then that was sort of right at the time where I think by synchronicity, as they say, there are no mistakes. you were starting to work on this beliefs exercise,
Yes.
and that's where we are. Yeah. So I think
Yeah,
it was Passover when we
it
spoke,
was.
and yeah, and then that following Sunday is when I did the beliefs exercise for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a totally different perspective than most people going in, which is why I asked you to join me on this. Your awareness is expanded a lot through your history, of focusing on it. So I
Yeah.
love what you told me. You guys, I'll just tell you that I got an email from Eliza a few days after, I guess it was a few days, I don't even remember. And you said, "Oh my God, look what this has done so far." So this is what we want to share with everybody. So
Yes.
tell us how you did the
Yes.
process, and you guys, before I ask her to get into this, I just want to say that all Joseph's processes are concepts. They are concepts to be uniquely done by everybody. You don't have to do exactly what we say. I have added stuff to it. We're giving you the basic plan right now. And however it comes to you, this is the concept. This is the goal, which is to shift our physical vibration to the vibration of the fourth dimension and into the fifth. So, Eliza, let it rip. Let's hear what happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, I'll just admit that in the beginning I was just really in my mind about it.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, okay, wait, I'm going to unpack my beliefs now. Like, well, what are my beliefs, and how do I know what I believe? And then I thought to myself, well, why don't I think about the things that I'm kind of repeating to myself over and over again that I'm not happy about in my life.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of like a good place to seem to me to start,
Yeah.
where it's sort of like, if you're not happy with your life, look at your beliefs. You know what I mean? And so then it's like, okay,
Absolutely.
well,
That's
because
right.
because
That's
that's
right.
because you're creating your reality, right? So then there's something that you must be believing or holding on to, or feeling that whatever it is that's creating these things. So I kind of just started to write down, like, okay, well, what are the things that I kind of grumble about,
Yeah.
and in truth, I think that, and I don't know if we talked about this, but I'll just say, it's sort of like, anytime you're not happy with something, it's sort of like it's your friend, the ego, kind of telling you that you're not in
Yeah.
alignment. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of that idea of, like,
I love
the
that you've
ego's
incorporated that. I love that you incorporated that. I want to, as an aside, I'm going to stop you for a
yeah,
second. And I want you
yeah.
to explain how that shift in that understanding has helped you even in this process. So important to shift our perspective about the ego.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because, obviously, having lived a spiritual life, you get sold a lot of baggage about, the
Yeah.
ego, and interestingly enough, also in my industry, they talk about, like, oh, there's so many egos, and that it gets in the way, and, like, blah blah blah, and it's supposed to be like not a good thing to have,
Right.
um, but but in truth, I mean, I think what I've learned from you is that, from the Joseph teachings, and I just think it just makes so much sense, is that your ego is kind of like your guide through your incarnation, and really is sort of there to help you to survive,
Yeah.
on this level of frequency, but also is an indicator for you of where you are in your alignment or non-alignment, right?
Perfect.
So if you're and obviously, like, being overly identified with a false perception of your identity is a good way to get out of alignment,
Oh,
so
yeah.
the popular understanding of the ego isn't so far, far, far away from what it really is. You know what
Right.
I mean? It's just sort of one aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, I think that just this idea of, you know knowing that whenever I'm looking for an answer outside of myself, or whenever I'm pointing to something outside of myself as the cause for my unhappiness, that I'm off course.
Absolutely.
And
Well said.
and the
Yeah.
ego, yeah, and the ego is what sort of helps you, is doing that for you. It's almost
Right.
like a mirror to you of like where you are vibrationally.
Yes. Perfectly said. Yeah. So thank you for that. Okay. Go ahead.
Good. Yeah. Okay. So I was in my mind about it. I was like, how do I figure this out? And then I was like, well, why don't I just do a little bit of an audit of some of the things that I've been grumbling about in my life, or that, I feel like, why hasn't this manifested yet? Or, why does this have to be so hard? Or why does this person have to be like this? Or, whatever it is that, are the things, and we all have the things.
We all have the
So
things.
so I wrote down some of the things, and then I started asking myself, well, what must I? Okay, so here's a list of things. It was like 8 things. Let me just top 8 things. Out of on top of my mind, and then I started looking at the things and going, well, what must I have to believe in order for these things to be true? For me to believe that this is, what must I believe for this to be happening in my reality?
Yeah.
And so then I was able to write those down. And then what I did was I realized, okay, those are my current beliefs. And I have them in front of me if we want to talk about some of them.
You do whatever
Yeah,
you want to do. Yeah.
so I'll give you an example. And this actually came from, I've been looking for a home for a really long time, and we can go into a whole rabbit hole about what's going on in the real estate market right now. Let's not. But I've been looking for a home for a really long time, and that's one thing that's really kind of bummed me out. Is at a person at my age, with my level of achievement, with my level of savings, why hasn't it happened for me? What's going on there? And then I realized that a belief that could be driving that condition in my life, is that my ideal conditions are outside of me, outside of my reach. That I must somehow believe that. And so that was sort of like a current belief. Okay, it's like this thing that I want, but I can't have. You know what I mean? I'm always grumbling about it. Well, what must I believe? Is it the thing? The thing that's my ideal thing that I want is outside of me, and I just can't quite grab it. So
Right.
that's an example, yeah, of one of the ways that I sort of unpacked it, is like, here are the things I'm grumbling about. What must I believe? What must be a core belief that's driving that? And then I kind of filled that side of the paper out, and then one by one, I took those current beliefs and wrote them as what my soul must really believe to be true, in truth.
Or
And
knows, your
so,
soul's knowing of that same belief. Right.
yes, my
Mhm.
soul's knowing of that same belief. So if we take a current belief, like my ideal conditions are outside of me, just outside of my reach, then what my soul believes, what my soul knows, is my ideal conditions are within me, easily within reach.
That's right. That's
And
right.
it's such a simple but profound pivot.
Right. So let's talk about that more. So your soul's belief is, say it again.
My ideal conditions are within me, easily within reach.
Easily within reach. So by shifting your perspective from they are out of reach for me, even though you have all the 3D substance, right? You still have the
Yeah,
belief that it's out of reach. And so that's what you're calling to you. It's out of reach, it's out of reach. You won't find it that way. You're only going to find
yeah,
things that you believe are within your reach, which of course you don't want because it's not your ideal, right?
yes,
So
yes,
so your soul's knowing that it's not, the house is not coming from outside of you, very 3D perspective of that. Well, what do you mean it's not coming? Because it's delivered vibrationally first, like every single manifestation, right? So
yes,
the
yes,
house that's perfect for you is also based on your timing of readiness, which is you getting in alignment with it, and then it shows up,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So what has
yes.
happened? Has it manifested yet?
No,
No.
no, it hasn't manifested yet. But something, it's so interesting, that uh, you know, the things that we think we want, you know, um, And the process that we go to try and get them, especially when we talk about the law of attraction,
Right.
getting it, and when I say the things that we do in order to get them, I'm talking about the spiritual things that we do to try and understand how law of attraction works and focus on our own state of inner well-being and inner alignment. That's what I'm talking about. Actually, for me at least, has resulted in me realizing that really what I want is the inner alignment.
That's right. That's right. And that's what the process, when we shift our vibration, we're more in alignment than not, right? That's the fourth dimension. We're more in alignment than not. And when you are more in alignment than not, what you are discovering, and I guess we're going to hear more about that, when you are more in alignment than not, you are creating from a space of more in alignment than not. Right. So that first belief goes by the wayside because now you're focused in a different direction. You're looking in a different direction for the manifestation.
Yeah.
We actually are creating. We're creating in every moment. People say, I want that house. I want that car. I want that job, whatever it is. But understanding from the space of alignment is knowing that you already created it in its vibrational form. And when you focus on your alignment, the opportunities to realize it in the physical experience are presented to you. That's what the space of alignment offers, is the opportunities to realize what you've already created. But you have to be in alignment with the desire, which is in alignment, right?
Yeah.
You have to be at the same frequency to get that vibrational agreement, and the house will show up. I can't wait for our part 2 of this.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
It's coming.
We'll have to record it at my house.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So the time it takes to get into the house from where you were to where you are now is to continue walking forward on the path of alignment. Esther does a wonderful job, of course, of teaching this. And she said, I was listening to her the other day, and she said something that really lends itself to this process. And I'd never heard her say it before. And she said, when you have a desire, she calls it shooting off the rocket of desire, right? And shoots it right into the vortex. And she said, we, as these are my words, not hers, but same, we as the human aspect have got to get out in front of it. We get out in front of it, which means, now we'll use your example here, getting out in front of it is in your meditations or throughout the day. I do this a lot throughout the day. I keep a picture of it right here. And every once in a while, I'm adding to it and I'm adding to it, we could, that could bring you off course a little bit if you get too detailed, because, when we take our hands off the wheel, what is delivered to us is something we haven't even imagined. It's so much better. It's so much better because it's in total alignment. There's no resistance to it. So the feeling of walking into your house, the feeling of, signing that final paper, the feeling of it being done is what puts you in vibrational agreement with what you've created. And it will show up. And of course, vibrational agreement is the coming together of the non-physical vibration of the house in this scenario, and your knowing that it's sitting there for you. To knowing. Remember, when we get to the new earth, we will be manifesting moment by moment, just by way of focus. Just by our focus. Anita, I'm just going to sidetrack for a second. Anita Moorjani, in her book, Dying to Be Me, I don't know if you ever read it, but it's fantastic. I talk about it a lot because she talks about this, many things, but she talks about this when she was, I don't want to say dead, but she was, but she had left her body and she was swimming around in the fifth dimension, seeing her friends, seeing her father, and she noted certain things. And one of those things was that she could manifest anything being someplace experiencing, it was all experience because it's all vibrational there, but it was
Mm-hmm.
her
Mm-hmm.
experience of the manifestation in that moment that she focused on it. And that's how our soul manifests. That's how the universe was manifested, and that's what we're moving into. So to get that house, you're already living there in your vibrational state. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
the physical catching up, catching
Yeah.
up to who we
Yeah.
really are. So go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I can't wait to go back and listen to this so I can
That was a good thing. Yeah.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just say that I really got, I don't want to say distracted, but I got reoriented in this exercise to really be focusing more on what other beliefs. First of all, these beliefs, So I kind of I wrote down the six beliefs. Actually, I wrote it all on a piece of paper, but I folded it in half, and I put
Wow.
the half of what my soul knows right on the left side of my desk, so that I could be looking at it every day and sort of
So
thinking
nice.
about it, every day, that, my ideal conditions are within me and within reach, that my most precious belongings, are
Yes.
inside of me, these kinds of things. That my only job is to be in alignment with my soul. Everything wonderful flows from there. I mean, these are very like powerful things to
Powerful.
be looking at and internalizing on all levels, on a daily basis. And I think that what started happening for me is that there was the second part to the exercise when we corresponded,
Yes.
which was about the source of the beliefs, the source of the current
Yes.
beliefs, and the source of what your soul knows, and that the source of the current beliefs were fear, and that the source of the what your soul knows is based in love.
Yes.
And that was, I'll admit, something that when you first shared it with me, I had a kind of
You
I was
resisted
triggered
it.
by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and I'll tell you why, is just because I just feel there's so much talk about that in the spiritual community,
Yeah.
about sort of the fear. And it's almost like, kind of, in a way, it's like the more you talk about it, the more you evoke it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So
That's right.
I'm kind of like, I don't know if I really want to have a piece of paper that has that rubber stamp, 8 times, and be looking at it. Is that a good idea?
Yeah.
Um, but I did really. I noticed my response first and foremost, and I kind of acknowledged that that's, and then I didn't. It wasn't like I was questioning it, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. Is that helpful? Is that going to be helpful to me, or is that not going to be helpful to me? I didn't hold on to it really tight. I
Yeah.
kind of just sort of looked at it as though it were something resting in the palm of my hand. And then I started having this inner interrogation. Um,
Wow.
you know, and interrogation sounds harsh, but it was more like, kind of like, just kind of asking myself, like, well, why do I believe this? Why do I believe that my ideal conditions are outside of me, just outside of my reach? Or, why do I believe that that my job is to keep everybody in a state of harmony? When, do you know what I mean? Like, why do I believe these things?
Right.
And the more I started kind of going back to it, I realized that a lot of this comes from my childhood. A
Yep.
lot of it comes, and in my case, because I've been on a spiritual journey for so long, and also I think it's important to note that after I left the ashram, I went into therapy, and I'm still working with the same therapist
Wow.
that I began working with then, and she and I are both on the spiritual path together.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
We've been together so long, that we kind of share the journey together. Is that, a lot of what happened for me later in life was realizing that there were experiences that I had that were what I would call pre-linguistic. Like, you know, like before I really had memory, and before I could really even talk, that were the vibrational source of a lot of my beliefs. And it's really hard to get back there. I think it's, in therapy, you know what I mean? It's like, if you can remember things and then you can remember how it made you feel, you can get at it. But if there were things that were sort of like before you really could remember things, before you could really talk about them, how do you access it, right? And so while I was doing this exercise, I started to realize, like, these were things that I was realizing in my meditations. So in my meditation, this was like coming up during my meditation, that these are things that I felt as an infant, that I felt that my needs wouldn't be met, or I felt that I wasn't surrounded by love, and that it was the fear that my needs wouldn't be met or that I wouldn't be loved. That was the vibration that then later calcified into these unconscious beliefs.
That's right.
And that was really profound, because for me, at least, what happened was I was like, oh, well, I can, and somehow, I don't know how I know to do this, or if this is even, advisable to others,
Marty.
But I just, well, Marty's like, here, let's try this. Marty's my guide. For
Marty's
everybody listening.
Guide.
Marty's my guide's name is Marty. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that you can visualize yourself as that infant and recreate that moment for yourself.
Yes.
And it's almost kind of like a shamanic healing on yourself, where you relive that moment. And
you
so
change the outcome, right?
You change the outcome. And so
yeah.
I was reliving these moments, and I was visualizing Marty and all of my other guides. I have 18 guides and helpers, and I was visualizing them all in the room with me from the moment that I was born, and realizing that this entire time I've been surrounded by love.
Yes.
And that I've always been loved. And when I did that, I was allowing myself to sort of feel that, like, almost on a cellular level. And it was, it was really, really profound. But I feared the fear, and then I found the fear, is where I'm getting to in this story, with the exercise. And then in so doing, I was able to really sort of get to, kind of the nub of it. And then I'll share with you what I realized actually today, knowing that we were going to have this conversation.
Before you do that, I'm going to interrupt you, because I want to add something to what you just said about the infant situation. That vibration that you were holding as an infant, you had been holding for many lifetimes. And it just continues to manifest. This is what we're moving out of, right? We are a compilation, as we've discussed. We are a compilation. We are the human physical representative of our soul. And when we spend all this time, like we have in the third dimension, we pick up these beliefs along our way. So this belief you carried in with you, which is why you were an infant believing you weren't loved. In other lifetimes, you had experiences, but it manifested in this way, and it will continue to manifest, right? We've talked about this too. As you move forward, it continues to manifest until you expand that aspect, which is exactly what you did. You expanded that aspect, and those guides that were surrounding you are always surrounding you. They're always with you. They're always with us, right? He doesn't throw us down here, just, throw you in a pile of garbage, and leave us there. We have the ego, we have our guides, we have the angels, we have all these things. I travel with angels, nothing like it. It's fabulous. So there's a lot of ways, but your recognition of that is so powerful. And what it comes down to on the bottom line is that it doesn't really matter. A lot of people want to understand. I did too. But what it boils down to is, after you understand it, is that vibration that created that belief in or out of alignment. That's the bottom line. I'm a bottom line kind of gal. And so you have to shift it. A lot of people say, well, I want to know why it's there so I can shift it. I get that. I'm the same way. I want to understand it, first. You don't have to. some will, some don't have to. It doesn't really matter because the bottom line is, where is the vibration? Is it in the third
Yes.
dimension or is it in the fifth?
Yes.
That's what
Yeah.
everything boils down to. So I want you to talk about, because you started off by saying, I can't wait to tell you what happened today. So let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Well, so what happened today was, you know, I guess, as you raise your vibration, as you raise your frequency, you know what I mean, and you are able to hold the notes, uh, you're often gifted with more and more of your communicative abilities.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether that's
Absolutely.
any of claircognizance,
Yep.
clairsentience,
Yep.
clairvoyance, and for me, it comes in as I call it claircognizant. It's just like packets of knowing,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, I just know something. It just
Yes.
like comes in, and it's like a fully formed everything.
Yes.
And what popped in today was that um, fear is just the fear of the absence of love. And so it's really all it's all love.
Separation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's all love. It's like either alignment with love or a fear of non alignment. You know what I mean? It's like,
Of
but
no
it's all
love.
yeah, it's like fear, but it's all in relation to love. And it was like just such a, I don't know, like such a
Profound.
profound kind of realization, because obviously, as I've been uh you know as I did the exercise, and I've been having these meditations and sort of revelations, I'm expanding, my
Yes.
consciousness is expanding, and my access to higher and higher frequential experiences of love is also expanding.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, once you lock in to that, you're like, oh my God, how can I how can I create all the conditions around me all the time so that I can stay connected to this?
Yeah. That's right. That's
You
right.
just
Once
you
you
just
taste it. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So yeah,
beautiful.
so I mean,
Beautiful. Yeah,
that's
that's
what I
great.
got.
Joseph said, when we will be writing at some point a new lexicon that will be in alignment with the fifth dimension, because most of our words, I get hung up a lot because there are no words to describe things,
Yeah.
and there's so much, everything is different. I'm so glad that well, first, let me go back to lexicon before I get ahead of myself. Joseph said the word fear will not be in our lexicon because there's no vibrational agreement for it. Fear is a label, and it's a label that says it's out of alignment. It's a label for something that's out of alignment. And when you
Yeah.
shift your usage, well, it is a perspective, but when you shift your usage of the word fear to out of alignment, you feel immediate relief, because the term out of alignment carries no judgment. It is just a
Yeah.
statement of fact, of vibrational fact, because out of alignment breeds out of alignment. So if you back up, and I tell this to people all the time, and it's so important, because when you stop judging your current beliefs, when you stop judging yourself, and you just say, well, I know why it was out of alignment. It's in agreement. It's in vibrational agreement with the timeline I'm in, and I chose it.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can
Yeah.
say, well, I can choose something else. We are free to choose at all times. So when you taste or when you experience that space of alignment, like you said, all right, how do I stay here? When I'm in meditation and my whole body is just humming, it feels like it's 2 inches off the bed, because I lay down all the time. It's 2 inches off, and it's like I don't want to move, because I'm just soaking that up. Esther says, milk it, milk it, milk it. and that is the time when we can create, and I go right to that
Yeah.
space. So I know what you're talking about. And, when we get to the fourth dimension, as we move into the fourth dimension, where that vibration is dominant within us, dominant within our physical vibration, then we are naturally and hopefully, certainly habitually calling to us those same matching vibrations, just like we have been calling to us the out of alignment vibrations, because that's where we've been focused for so long. It's a new day. So we just have to
Yeah.
say, see you later. I'm going to the next step. Thank you for your help to get here, but I got to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, your revelations have been great. I've been loving them. Your emails and saying, look what happened today, look what happened today. And it happens differently for everybody. It happens differently for everybody, and
Yeah.
it is, when you get those blocks of thought, it's profound. And I'm so glad, let me go back to this, that you mentioned that as we expand into more of who we are, more of who we are is made available to us. And we bring it into our awareness by focusing on the space of alignment. We get some flack because of my translation style of Joseph is not in, I'm not in a trance. My voice doesn't change. All that's gone. All that is 3D stuff. And that's not to put anybody down who does that. Don't get me wrong. Don't want to get any letters about that. It's just that as we expand and we become more of who we are, we talk about it as if we are them. Joseph says, you are us with clothes on. You're us with clothes on. So I don't have to, and you are experiencing the same thing, right? Because you're getting more from Marty, you're getting more from your guides. And doesn't it seem easier? It's just kind of coming in because you're in the space of receiving when you're in alignment.
Yes.
You're in that
Absolutely.
space of receiving where it's all available. And those
Yeah.
doors, including your new house door, will open up as you focus on the state of alignment. I do this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've created some pretty cool things just by focusing. Remember, it's your megaphone. And I scream pretty loud through that megaphone sometimes.
Yeah.
And, and when it manifests, it's so fabulous. But the timing is very important. Remember, the dominoes, timing is very important.
Yeah.
Really.
And I think, the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that this experience was not without its, shall we say, challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple of times where maybe there was a way of being, a way of behaving, a way of responding that was not going to serve me as I tried to stay in alignment.
Yeah.
And we had an interesting exchange about it, which I think would be worth talking about, where Joseph reframed the language and the way that I was thinking about it in a way that I thought was really fantastic. So without going into personal detail, I had this experience where, let's just say, I was surprised by an event that occurred. It was like not really, ideal, not an ideal scenario. And I realized the correlation between me having recently come to a really, really high realization, and then very shortly after, this really not ideal thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, is this my soul testing me to see if I can stay in alignment when things don't go my way, or where there's conflict, or where there's something that, I didn't expect that's like not preferred. And I think that you correct me, because now I'm maybe not exactly remembering, but it wasn't really, your soul isn't challenging you.
Right.
It's just integration. It's just integration. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. There is a lot of people who teach that, the earth is a school and we're being tested, and it's just God testing me, throwing all this bad stuff at me to see if I can stand up or whatever that is, all these tests. Well, that whole teaching is out of alignment because there's no testing, there's no comparing, there's nothing like that from that vibration. So that's a 3D learned response. And it is always, always based on our choosing. The choosing doesn't have to be in this moment. You have a vibration. Remember, we are carrying vibrations that manifest. And when something triggers a belief or an understanding that we picked up along the way, triggered through a scenario or a situation that just happened, we immediately say, oh my God, the universe is testing me. What's going on? It's nothing like that. It's just to be recognized as a choice. And your response to it is also a choice that will either move you to create momentum that is more in alignment with what you are looking at, which is out of alignment in this scenario, or you can choose your in alignment pathway by choosing your way out. We choose our way out of these vibrational timelines. So it's never, you're never being tested from the universe. Universe doesn't do that. God's not testing you. Your soul's not testing you. Your soul is shining the light. When Joseph first started out, put him on every book, the lighthouse, the lighthouse in the dark, because their light, the light of our soul, the light of the God consciousness that we carry within us, is always shining. It is steady. It is shining. We can't do away with that light. We can look away from it and not recognize it, which is what causes our beliefs that are out of alignment and our scenarios and all the situations we get ourselves into, but the soul is always standing ready with answers to our questions, with all the solutions. But we tend to focus on the out of alignment position where the problem was created to begin with and say, how do I fix this? But if you're in alignment, there's really nothing to fix. You just know, and it's always in a different direction. Your solution is always found in alignment, and it's always not the direction you're looking in. If you're looking at the situation, can't solve a problem from the same space where it was created. And that's what you learn from that experience, that you have to shift your perspective to a new vibration. And we do that by choosing in alignment. I almost said fear, by choosing the in alignment path as opposed to the out of alignment path. Because you can't choose from the out of alignment position and expect a manifestation that's in alignment. There has got to be vibrational agreement. That's where the perfection of everything is. Perfection exists only in vibrational agreement, which means everything is always perfect because vibrational agreement is universal.
Yes.
Right?
So this is another thing that I wanted to talk about. That was another sort of like, it wasn't necessarily a bump in the road, but it was another sort of like revelation that happened. So in the course of me sort of working with these beliefs was, for reasons that I won't get into, I've been drawn to really focus on 2 or 3 particular years of my life and go over them in minute detail. And
that sounds so much like you. Your analytical mind is showing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I've got Mercury in Virgo. Okay. What can I say? Anyway, so I was, this was happening, and I was thinking to myself, is this happening for a reason? Like that I'm having to pour over in detail these particular years. And what I discovered was that buried in those years were some feelings that I had about what was happening then that were, feelings of regret, which really surprised me, because I am not a person who, I've always thought, like regret, that's for other people who don't live their life full on and, make the most of every moment. Because that's kind of more of my speed, as a person in general. Right. It's like, I just really try and go for it in life. And so I have few regrets, and I thought I didn't have any until I got put in the situation where I had to like go into minute detail. And I was like, oh, um, but geez, didn't know
Yeah.
that was there. But when I looked at it, I realized that um, the things that happened were perfect.
Yeah. They
That
always are.
what had been going on in my life was absolutely perfect for bringing me to the place that I am now in terms of my spiritual realization, which I would not give up for a million trillion gazillion dollars.
Yeah.
So, that understanding, that everything is always perfect,
Yeah.
even those things that happened that I mistakenly regretted, but now I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful for that, and I see it in such a different way. To even that little bump in the road that I hit, where there was a little bit of a conflict. It's like that was an opportunity for me to make a choice to be in alignment. It was perfect. It
That's
was
right.
absolutely perfect. And so when you can start to look at your life in that way, it's just like you said, it's like the vibe just feeds on itself, and this
That's right.
you just start feeling like, and it solidifies the frequency, and that's what makes it more, those high highs in my meditations, are those positive feelings are more accessible to me on in my everyday life, because I don't have any of these negative perceptions swimming around, like I used to. You know what I mean? Like
That's
I'm
right.
really looking at things with just so much more clarity. And it does feel a little bit like you described, which is like it's the roller coaster, and you're like, you can just let
Yeah.
go and just be like, wee.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. And this process really unfolds so many discoveries, reveals so many discoveries. And that one is a really important one, because when you shift your physical, again, we have been in the third dimension for so long, and our dominant physical vibration, generally speaking, and obviously collectively, if we look outside, we see what's going on out there, has been out of alignment, which is why we are in many of all the situations that we're in today as a collective. However, we always create our own reality, regardless of what's going on outside of us. And as soon as so we have been, let me get back to this. We have been dominant in the third dimensional out of alignment contrast for so long, eons of time, many, many lifetimes. And all because all the teachings are also in agreement. The teachings, the Bible's one of them, all the teachings that have come out of the third dimension are in vibrational agreement with the third dimension, of course, or we wouldn't be able to understand them. So
Mm-hmm.
as we move through, and as we consciously, as you're doing, begin to shift our physical vibration, something that the human collective has never done before. Individuals obviously have done it. But as we expand more and more into that new vibrational timeline, as soon as we hit that 51%, we're flipped into the fourth dimension, where we are now, instead of calling out to the out of alignment vibrational timeline to satisfy our manifestations, right? Because that's the dominant vibration is always the caller, is always the megaphone, the dominant vibration. So as we shift our focus from calling out from that space to now calling out from the love space, then all of a sudden we are attracting naturally the loving vibrations from the new vibrational timeline. And the more you focus on it, the more momentum you create. You go from 51% to 54% to 60% to 75%. It's the creation of momentum of that vibration and your attractive abilities to call it forward, because now you know that it's you who's doing the calling, and you who's doing the creating and the processing and the thinking and the choosing and the focusing, all that stuff. Before, we were kind of
Yeah.
ignorant to it. We just said, oh, I hate this.
Yeah.
and we sat in the hate.
Yeah.
We sat there stewing.
Yes.
Well, this is
Yes.
just who I am. This is
Yeah.
just what, I do the best with what God gave me. Those kind of defeatist attitudes are all, of
Yes.
course, out of alignment. Not an
Yes.
easy shift for us to make because we've been doing this for so long, but now really the universe kind of stands up. Joseph for me, Marty, and your guides for you, and everybody has their guides, and they say, come this way, and they're yelling at us. And the
Yeah.
vibration and that light that's coming in is just flooding our planet, and we can choose to move into it or not.
Yeah.
And we get what we choose.
Yes.
We get what we
It's
choose.
interesting. I mean, it is so interesting that there is a tremendous amount of self-responsibility.
It's all self, because it's all vibrational, and nobody can choose your vibration for you. Nobody.
Yeah.
People can't. I had a guy years ago that said, I was friends with him, and he said, you're blocking, your vibration is, he was a spiritual guy, really a really cool guy, actually wrote a couple books. And he said, you are blocking me. Your vibration is blocking me from meeting my woman, and I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean my vibration is blocking you? I can't block you. I'm not that powerful, I mean, I'm powerful in my own calling, just like you are, and just like everybody is, but I'm not standing in front of anything, And so, and that was an old teaching that people can block or insert themselves into your experience. And they can only do that if you allow it. You open the door, they're going to come through. But if you're in control of your vibration, and you're doing such a great job with this, so fun to watch. If you are in control, more so than not, because we're still in the third dimension, so we're in and out and in and out. And every time we go in and out, just like what you said, the recognition that it's just an opportunity to choose something different. It's always, every experience, every choice we make just presents a new opportunity to choose again. That's the beauty of this vibration, and the knowing and the self-responsibility for our own vibration. No one is creating anything for us. No one. A lot of people blame, the ego gets blamed for so much. The ego is doing this to me. The ego is thinking these thoughts for me. It's a ridiculous notion to me now, because, I mean, it makes so much more sense that the ego is an aspect of God. I picked mine up in a convertible on my way in this time, and we came flying in. I have to tell you that before Joseph gave me that understanding or that new perspective of the ego, I was under the impression, I never really understood what the ego was, but I heard, all the things. He's got a huge ego. The ego did this, but I never really got in. I didn't understand it, didn't care to, it never made sense to me. But when I was starting to think about the ego, I was in a meditation and I heard, give it a name. So I named it. I won't say what the name was in case anybody's listening that has the name. It was a man's name that I don't like. And because I have a history with this name, right? And it stirred something in me. And I said, well, I'm going to name it something I don't like, because I think, now I'm told that the ego is bad. So I'm going to give it a bad name, my human 2-year-old throwing a fit. And I felt so. Then they said, make it a 2-year-old, because they were walking me out of that belief, actually, by doing this. So I conjured this adorable little 2-year-old with this horrible name, and I felt so sorry for it. That's when I started to shift. And I said, this is not making sense. I can't make sense of what you just said. And they were teaching me about the label of the ego, and the visual that went with it. I asked somebody the other day, did an interview with a guy, and he said, your teaching of the ego is completely opposite of what it is in Course in Miracles. And I said, well, it is. It's complete opposite of what most teachings are of the ego. Wayne Dyer taught edging God out, when we teach the exact opposite of that. And my response to him, or our response to him, was that, again, every teaching is readied for the human collective understanding. And although it is a teaching of Jesus, the translator is still in the third dimension and was teaching it. And I love the Course in Miracles. It was wonderful, wonderful written.
Mm-hmm.
But we are evolving the message. This is why they said we are the evolved consciousness and teaching the evolved message of Seth and Abraham. They want us to understand that everything evolves and everything changes and expands. And if you're going to get hung up, if you still believe that God is sitting on a throne up in a cloud somewhere, you need to catch up to speed with who you really are. You know, those teachings served us at some point, but they don't serve us now. You have to choose the teachings that serve and are in vibrational agreement with where you are heading, which is what Esther meant when she said, get out ahead of it. Get out ahead of it. Know where you're going. Lay down the pavers.
Yeah. I also, by the way, I love segment intending from Esther.
Beautiful
from
teaching.
Abraham. Kind of like, because that's another way of getting out of ahead of it. You know, I like to say, I like to talk about like sending love letters to my future self.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, sort of, kind of, just kind of intending for it to be good. And then what are you going to do now to ensure that you'll have that good feeling? Because there are so many things, obviously, that are within your control. It's all within your control. But you know what I mean? Like, even you can act. I mean, I think the one last thing to mention is like other people. Okay, let's talk about other people.
Okay. Because, this ought to be interesting. Okay.
Well, but I mean, it's like when you're really in a place of radical self-responsibility and you're doing this spiritual work, you can have the illusion that you can be very lonely. You can feel really alone.
Yes.
Because a lot of other people are just they're not there, they're not on the same, page. And so who do you really talk to about it? And, how do you really connect? And I would say that I very rarely feel that, because I feel like we have so much support in the inner world, in the higher frequency. Like I just so feel the presence of, Marty and my guides and, some of these other energies and these higher teachings, So I don't, for anyone out there who's listening, who thinks, oh, it gets so lonely, just remember that you are absolutely not,
that's right.
Alone, and focus on those presences, and they will become more and more palpable to you, and you won't feel that. But then the other thing about other people is sort of, seeing them as their higher self, seeing them as their fifth frequential self, seeing them as their, true energetic self, whatever that language is that
as their
is
soul.
in your, as their soul, and visualizing them being in a perfect state of well-being, spiritually, emotionally, physically, visualizing them being awakened and in total resonance and alignment with their soul. It's such a powerful thing to do. Very, very, very powerful thing to do. And in a way, you're having a relationship with that higher frequential version of them. You can create a relationship with that higher frequential version of them. And I don't know, like I like to think that it's almost like it helps open the gate for them a little bit. Because you're not judging them. You're not, you know what I mean? You're not emanating this energy out toward them.
That's right.
And that is, not in alignment. You're actually emanating this in alignment vibe. And it can kind of help open it up for them as well.
It does. And, that's exactly what the soul's perspective is. Because when you can see somebody, how was this? Sorry, a piece of hair just flew in my mouth or something. When you can see someone, the whole goal of this is for us to take on and accommodate our soul's perspective. That's what the ultimate goal is in this whole thing. And When you can look at someone else and see them as their soul, knowing who your soul is, knowing who Marty is, knowing who your guides are,
Yeah.
this is where
Yeah.
we're all connected, right? We're all connected on the soul level. So when we can shift our physical vibration to be dominant in the soul's perspective, it's easier to step out of judgment because there's no judgment there, because you will
Mhm.
readily look at people as you see yourself, as what we do anyway. So if you're not
Mhm.
judging yourself, you're not judging others.
Yeah.
When you spend more time in alignment than you do out of alignment, you see other people as their soul. And
Yeah.
that's always a great practice too, of
Yeah.
course, is to
Yeah.
practice doing that, practice seeing
Yeah.
people that way. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that
And to
everybody
just,
has a purpose.
yeah. And to also just accept that this is this is, they made this choice to be on the learning journey that they're on,
That's right.
and where they are right now is perfect.
That's right.
And you know what I mean? And really kind of just, that has helped me so much. So much,
Yeah.
especially, in my work life, in my personal life, living in New York, going out in the street, just kind of just, that radical acceptance, and that, it comes with a lot of compassion too, because I mean, if you've traveled this path, you know, and if you've chosen an incarnation where you're really going to grow, you know what suffering is. You know what it feels like to be not in alignment. You know what I mean? It feels terrible.
Yeah.
And so, being able to have that compassion for other people is, so important.
And compassion, of course, is in alignment. It's the
Yeah.
overwhelming love of alignment, love of self, which is the all, really.
Yeah.
When you feel compassion for someone, you are, what Esther would say, shooting a rocket of desire for love for them, but for the whole world.
Yeah.
Our love
Yes.
spreads far and wide, far and wide vibrationally. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. Thank you for joining us today. This has been
Oh, you're
so
so
much
welcome.
fun. This has been so much fun. And
Such a
I'm going
pleasure.
to ask
Yeah.
you now, I'm going to make you commit. I'm going to force you to commit. My
Okay.
3D
Okay.
person on a continuation of this so we can watch your journey unfold. You've been so good at this process and you've made so many discoveries that just because it is a process of expansion. And as you expand, other things come in. So it's just like
Yes.
you know, a jumping off point. The process is a jump, because you're right, the beliefs are what we create from. And so when we can look at our beliefs, we're looking at vibration. We're
Yes. Yeah.
understanding more and more of vibration, which is
Yeah.
really important. Of course it
Yeah.
is. We don't ever shut
Yeah.
up about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Vibration.
it would be my pleasure. And, I would say that one of the other things that's happened for me during the course of this, beliefs exercise, shall we call it,
I
Joseph's
haven't made
beliefs
up a name
exercise,
yet. Yeah.
is, I really just feel so inspired to openly, put my name next to this and talk about it, and make it normal to be spiritual in the
Yeah. Good
world.
for you.
For it not to be weird, and for someone like myself who, is at the level that I am in my career and holds a job, and you know what I mean, and does whatever I do, to also be spiritual and be normal, and it's okay. And if we can accept all these other things, all these other beliefs that people have,
That's right.
it should certainly be okay to accept these beliefs, and even if you don't understand them or agree with them, to be able to be respectful of them. So I'm really so grateful to you for
Oh,
giving me the opportunity to do that.
you're a doll. And thank you for saying that, because it is, more and more we're expanding as a collective. Obviously, teachers are coming out of the woodwork. You're a powerful teacher. The people that I have sessions with are teachers, all powerful teachers. Everybody's standing up now to find a way to move forward. And it is important just to live who you are, We just live who we are, because the people that don't agree with us will ultimately fall by the vibrational wayside. Because if you just keep moving forward, you're also attracting the people who are also of like mindedness, like vibrationally. So, it's a wonderful path. And I'll tell you that the new beliefs, all you have to do, and through this process, it helps us to understand too, how we are creating, because all you have to do is test it out. You can't go wrong by testing out, shifting a belief. We're not saying give up your old beliefs. You don't have to do that yet. You ultimately will want to, because when you start conjuring and really focusing on the new beliefs, that's when you start to see changes, right, in your physical reality. You already said you feel relief, you feel lighter, whatever you said, but you are feeling, which is like the second step in the physical manifestation. First, it's non-physical, then we feel it in our bodies, right? Because the physical response, the physical manifestation is also in your physical body, because it's vibrational. And we are calling everything to us vibrationally. So we create it in our bodies too. And then the body is really powerful in sending out that message. And it keeps us healthy, because now our cells, our body makeup, there's no illness, no sickness in the space of alignment. So when you focus on alignment, you spend some time there, you are repairing, let's say, we call it expanding, your cells that make up your body. Everything is vibrational. Everything. There's not one thing that isn't, which is why we continually push and push and push. Well, I do. They don't push. They just put it out there. I push.
God, Eliza. Thank goodness that you do.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, man. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
My pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
And so be in touch with me. I'll be in touch with you.
All right. Okay. All right.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and we will get back soon. All right. I'll talk to you soon, Eliza. Okay. Bye. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. For more information and more resources, visit theteachingsofjoseph.com. Follow us on Instagram at The Teachings of Joseph. Welcome aboard.